This is New Brunswick's independent community channel, CHCO-TV. We live in Charlotte County.
Good evening, folks. I'm John Smith, and
I'm Jason Speedy.
Welcome back to the show. It's been a chaotic month, really. We've had to postpone a couple of shows due to the weather. I think everybody's had about 3 or 4 feet of snow dumped on them.
Yeah, we're as everyone's saying around Charlotte County, we're tired of the winter, to say the least.
Yeah. What can you do, though? Shovel some snow, or?
Yeah. Well, it's just like Father Time. Mother Nature rarely, if ever, loses, right? Yeah. So
6 more weeks till spring.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, so
according
they
to
say.
the calendar.
Yeah, so they say. Yeah.
So we'll start out on some NBA today. The trade deadline just passed there Thursday, so it was quite a flurry of action there. Didn't really seem like it was going to be too much at the beginning, but everything kind of happened all at once. So.
Yeah. Well, and you see that usually with trade deadlines. I mean, you know, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things juggled in the air. You know, I mean, when it comes to money, matching up salaries and this, that, and everything. I mean, it takes a while for everything to get processed, and that's how I think you find like everything kind of comes down to the last second, which is exciting as a fan. You know what I mean? Like, you always tune in for, you know, the trade deadline, and you know when, you know, at 4 o'clock on Eastern time or Atlantic time or whatever when it is. You know, I mean, you're know,
gonna get a flurry of something.
You better check the websites and see what's going on, right?
So what do you think was the biggest trade? Who made the biggest splash, or who improved himself the most, I guess?
Well, I think what Oklahoma City did was phenomenal. They significantly upgraded their bench. I think they are a legitimate contender for the title, depending upon Kevin Durant's overall health, of course. But adding Enes Kanter, who's, you know, a center from Utah, he had a great game last night. I mean, I know they were only playing
Denver.
That's right. But I mean, he played well.
It helps when Russell Westbrook goes off and scores 20 points and 17 assists in 27 minutes.
Fair enough. Yeah. They made a big move earlier in the year, acquiring Dion Waiters. They kind of, I think, got addition by subtraction by getting rid of Reggie Jackson, trading him off to Detroit, because he clearly made it known that he didn't want to be there.
So, I mean, he was probably maybe the most talented player in the deal, but like you said, he didn't want to be there. So, and then he even said that he felt like he was a scapegoat to the team a lot of the times. Like, how could he do this if he was just the bench? He wanted to lead the team.
Yeah.
So you're getting rid of a player that's not going to sign with you again anyway, because he wants his own team. Yeah. And you brought in 3 really good young players that you have a chance to develop. So.
Yeah. Well, 2 things about that. One, I don't know who he thinks he is, because he's not anything like spectacular. Like he's
point guard's a deep position in the league right now.
Oh,
so I wouldn't even say. He's capable of leading a team, but I wouldn't put him in the elite point guard.
No, I mean, the only reason he's starting in Detroit is because Brandon Jennings is over the year. But I mean, no, he's a very serviceable point guard off the bench. He can score, but you know, he's not a transcendent player by any stretch. And I mean, that's the way that he seems to be portraying himself. And I mean, a couple years ago, Westbrook was out in the playoffs, and I mean, he played 40 minutes a game because there was
and even
nobody
at the
else
start
to
of the
play.
season, he did start out very well, but then he kind of tapered off. And
well, I mean, you're not going to get the touches in the minutes when you got Russell Westbrook on the team. I mean, he's a phenomenal player.
He's playing right now while Russell Westbrook is playing best player in the league this last month.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely. You know, I mean, he's definitely in the conversation for MVP. And I mean, is he kind of gaining the steam as far as Kevin Durant's team or Russell Westbrook's team? You know what I mean? Like that. I mean,
I think they split it pretty well, 50-50. Well, now that Russell Westbrook has kind of stepped it up this last year, it seems like they're kind of going more of a 50-50. It's both their team, like, really. Like, when Durant's been out, Westbrook has stepped up, and when Durant's been out, when Westbrook's been out, Durant stepped up.
Yeah.
So I mean, they've split it very well, I found, and they're learning to play with each other too.
That's right. They both have strengths and weaknesses that complement each other very well, and that's why they are as successful as they are, and that's why they get along and play so well together. I know it's just. It boggles the minds of the NBA writers and stuff like that. How can these types of personalities coexist on a team when they're mandate? Their mandate is usually the media is to it's got to be somebody's team. Well, I mean, every team. It's the team that wins the championship.
Yeah, exactly.
So getting back to your point, I mean, adding Kyle Singler, DJ Augustine in that Detroit trade, flipping Reggie Jackson for them. I mean, those four that I just mentioned. I mean, that's a very good. I mean, that'd be a better starting lineup than what
76ers.
Minnesota, 76ers, the Knicks now.
I don't know about Minnesota if it would be a better starting lineup than them right now. I mean, Wiggins is starting to come into his own form. Kevin Martin, is coming. He's playing really well. Ricky Rubio's kind of back from injury, so he's playing with a lot of potential. So,
and I mean, they got the big ticket back, KG.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's huge more for the franchise, and maybe even for like a guy like Wiggins who's going to become a franchise player. To be able to talk to a guy that's been a franchise player and be able to be like, how do you deal with the pressure, or what'd you do for this, or how do you answer the media for this? So I think it'll be good for him to maybe have a mentor to be like, how do you take on the responsibility of the whole team? So.
Yeah, well, I only hope that KG doesn't teach him to be a fake tough guy like KG always is. I mean, he's the first one to get it in the scrum and then back away. That's been his MO forever.
But he has been a top power forward in the league.
He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. And I think Minnesota's interested in re-signing him for
2 years.
Yeah,
as well.
Crazy as that sounds, because I mean, really, KG doesn't really have much to offer. But
you can give him 15, 20 minutes a game.
Oh yeah, give him 15 minutes a game, and I mean on a team,
6 points, 5 rebounds, maybe in that 10, 15 minutes. So.
And I mean, playing in a place like Minnesota, like it's a good point. You can help, bring
the young guys together.
Yeah, and bring upon the maturity that Wiggins is going to have to learn, because I mean, he is going to be the face of the franchise if he's not already, and I mean he's definitely taking the steps to being a very quality.
Zach LaVine too. I forgot about him. Did you see those dunks at the dunk contest?
Yeah, I didn't really find it that awe-inspiring. I know. I guess I'm just.
I think it was probably the best dunk contest since Vinsanity, though.
Well, yeah. Well, that's because they've been terrible, so it's kind of a low bar. But I mean, it's just you've seen it once, you've seen it.
Yeah.
It's.
I read an interesting article. It was they said that the mascots have ruined dunking, because the mascots have come out with like trampolines and they're doing flips on the trampolines and into the dunks, and so that kind of took away the awe-inspiring, like, look at this dunk sort of thing.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I don't see too many Spud Webbs out there. I mean, if you go back and watch the '86 dunk contest and what he did at his height was, I mean,
Nate Robinson come close, but
Nate Robinson's had some good dunks, but I mean, he won a competition there a couple years ago, and it took him like 10 tries to complete his dunk.
Yeah,
and
that
I mean,
was foolish.
And that's ridiculous, right? I mean, back in the day, you had Dominique Wilkins, Michael Jordan. I mean, that was a competitive thing between them. It doesn't bother me at all that LeBron's never been in him, because I think LeBron is one of the most overrated dunkers. I mean, I can't help but not be biased in anything I say, and I'll be the first to admit that. But I mean, it's the same thing every time that he does.
I would have liked to have seen Kobe in a dunk contest 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, but I mean, it's but I mean, when you yes, it is good to have star power, and I know, again, the media likes to say that they should be out there and doing it and stuff, but the D Browns and Nate Robinsons and Spud Webbs, I mean, they all had fantastic showings at a dunk contest. And I mean, yes, you have your Vince Carters and stuff, but I mean, if you can dunk, you can dunk.
Yeah.
If you've got good creativity, right? I mean, it was better than that year Dwight Howard won. I mean, was he almost 7 feet tall? Yeah. I mean, what did he do? He
jumped from the free throw line with a Superman cape, I think was his winning dunk.
And Blake Griffin jumped over a hood of a car. Like, I mean, that's not. I mean, it's creative, I guess. I suppose, but I mean, it's not Anyway,
we'll get off the dunk contest.
that 3-point contest, and that was
phenomenal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a field as
deep and as competitive. Like it really, any person in that 3-point contest.
Yeah, I mean, I would have put all my money on Steph Curry just because. I mean,
he's lights out. And
yeah,
one of the best point guards.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, and when he gets going, I mean, he gets going.
What,
I mean,
17 in a row did he hit or something? Or 13?
Yeah, it was something like that. But I mean, I didn't know that they did the last rack as all money balls.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they did. Was that new this year?
This year or last year, I think.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So I mean, that kind of skews it a little bit because back in the day when Larry Bird and Craig Hodges and those guys, I mean, it was just the one ball, right? So those inflated scores, they look nice, but they're not the same way that the Larry Birds and the Craig Hodges and these people who used, past champions,
made the 3-point contest.
Right.
So we talked about kind of who we thought the biggest winner out of the trade deadline was. In my opinion, I think the 76ers were probably the biggest loser.
Well, they get the Lakers draft pick, so if the Lakers...
Although it is top 5 protected.
That's right. So if the Lakers end up winning, and I don't know, I mean, I watched that Celtics game last night. I don't even know how they won that, but I mean, I mean... But
I mean, it's still top 5 protected, so I mean, protected, so the best pick they're going to get with it is 6.
Yeah. So I don't really know what Philly's doing. If I was a fan of their team, I would be a little
irritated,
disappointed. Well, I mean...
Well, they looked like they were going on a nice little rebuild there. Like KJ McDaniels is athletic, he could dunk, he could block, he hustled. Like he just brought that. We're gonna try every game, regardless if we're losing by 20, 30 points. We're gonna give it our all.
Yep.
He brought that. So I think that's essential when you're building a team to have somebody that has heart and passion and wants to play. And then Michael Carter-Williams, yes, he did struggle with his shot, but I mean the kid's young and he had potential.
Yeah.
And to just get a Lakers first-round draft pick back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just sends a bad message, I mean, there's tanking, and then there's, like, obvious tanking, and, I mean, it's like, you can only, I mean, they got, like, almost 20 draft picks in the next couple of years, and, I mean, that's great that you have those assets, but if you're not going to...
Use them. Like, if you trade them away the next year or 2 years later for another pick, what is the point?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, if you can flip those into quality players, well, then maybe, if that's your plan, well...
Hopefully that's what it is.
Put it into effect, I guess. The other thing is, I mean, you have to draft these guys right. I mean, it's not an exact science.
Well, I mean, look at the Edmonton Oilers. It's I mean, it's a different sport, but it's kind of the same process. They had high draft pick after high draft pick after high draft pick, and they're still at the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not a guaranteed science. I mean, it did work for Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, you could say they lucked out, though. Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, they're no brain.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if they think they're going to get the number 1 pick this year, they're crazy. I mean, with the Knicks as bad as they are, I mean, definitely the NBA is going to fix it so the Knicks get first pick. I mean, they did that back with Patrick Ewing. They're going to do it again. Do it again, right? The cynic in me.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of theorists out there that say that the balls can be just even of a different weight. Like if the Knicks ball was a little heavier, it'd be the first one picked. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why don't they just do it in front of everybody? You know what I mean? Like, why do it behind closed doors and then come out and I mean, make it a bigger show? You know what I mean? Like they perhaps would benefit from it financially, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I think another team that benefited from the trade deadline was Miami acquiring Goran Dragic. Unfortunately, with Chris Bosh being out for the rest of the year, that really kind of stunts what they potentially could have done. You throw out a starting lineup with all things being equal, healthy lineup of Chris Bosh, Dragic, Wade, Luol Deng, and Whiteside.
That's a domino.
That's a very good. That's a good starting 5. I mean, they don't have a lot
on
off the bench, but could they have? They snuck in, got that 7-8 seed. Could they have upset in Atlanta? Could they have upset Toronto?
Yeah. I don't know why not. I mean, Chris Bosh is a very versatile player. Like, he can defend, he can shoot. And Dwayne Wade, if Dwayne Wade gets on his game, then if his knee's not bothering
I mean, if
or his back, then he can carry a team. He can score 30, 40 points, no problem.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, he's he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
What did you think about the Bucks trade, getting rid of Brandon Knight for Michael Carter-Williams was one of the players. I don't remember who else they got, but
well, I mean, I just think I mean, they aren't a title contender. I mean,
they were going to go 1-0 pretty well if they did make it.
Yeah, chances are. And you know what? Hats off to him. Jason Kidd took a lot of crap last year for being a first-year coach and stuff, and
he's looked awesome with Milwaukee.
Well, he's done very good. He's worked really well with the young players. He's
do you think that'll help Michael Carter-Williams?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I just don't think. I think Brandon Knight, restricted free agent next year. I mean, I don't think he was going to probably stay. No. He's had a really good year, borderline all-star. I'm sure he sees the big lights and the big money, so he probably wasn't going to stay in Milwaukee. Michael Carter-Williams, second year in the league. Jason Kidd, Hall of Fame point guard. Maybe he can, and I mean, there was pretty much for all of Jason Kidd's career, he couldn't shoot worth crap either, right?
No, so, I mean, he was always a triple-double threat,
absolutely.
Though, just because he could pass and he could make enough shots to get...
And he can rebound.
And
so can Michael Carter-Williams. Yeah. So, I mean, I see Jason Kidd probably made a special request. If you can get a player like him, see what you can do. You know what I mean?
I think a quiet pickup was Aaron Aflalo for Portland. Like, that gives them some pretty good wing depth from Denver. So I think that they might be, I think, a sneaky team in the West.
Oh, absolutely. So. I was surprised they gave up a 13-point lead last night at home against Memphis, but I think maybe that's more of how good Memphis really is. Again, injuries, all things being equal, they will be a tough out in the playoffs. Damian Lillard, Wesley Matthews, Nicholas Batum, but the big guy, LaMarcus Aldridge. I mean, I know he's battling like a thumb injury. If he's healthy, they have a good chance of going to at least the Western Conference. I honestly
cannot wait for the Western Conference playoffs. Just 1 through 8 is just going to be phenomenal. Like Golden State, Memphis, Houston, Dallas. There is some really good teams in the West. It's going to be sad to watch one of them go out in the first round, really. Or 4 of them go out in the first round.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, and I like kind of the who's going to get in the East. I know. I mean, you got 5 teams jockeying for those last 2 spots. And I mean, I know, they're under 500 and they don't necessarily have the star power, but, I mean.
It'd be cool to see maybe a Detroit sneak in or a Boston, like even if it is a bad record, or even Indiana. Like if I've heard reports that Paul George is coming back for March sometime.
I think Paul George is going to start going 100% in practice right around the 1st of March, and he expects to be back mid-March. If he can get 10 games under his belt, that's enough time for a player like him to get in shape, get NBA ready, if you know what I mean. They can get in and sneak in again. If they can sneak into maybe that 7 seed, I see them. They would give a team like Toronto a tough time. I mean,
speaking of Toronto, we haven't really talked about them too much. They stayed kind of pat at the All-Star or the trade deadline, which I'm fine with. I'm confident with our team so far. I maybe would have, if it would have been me, I would have maybe liked a tougher center, maybe like behind Jonas Valanciunas that could actually shoot besides Chuck Hayes. Chuck Hayes is good defensively, but he's got absolutely no offense in his game.
Well, yeah, I think, and we've talked about this, previously. I mean, I think they were a move away from getting, they needed to get a little bit of extra scoring punch. Saw Lou Williams was out over the weekend, so I mean, if that turns into a reoccurring injury, I mean, you're going to need. You need something. But,
Terrence Ross really hasn't stepped up this yet.
Well, he's kind of taken a step back, with his,
But I mean, if say Lou Williams did get hurt, maybe he just plays out of his head. I mean, he didn't Saturday, but maybe who's to say he doesn't find his form.
Well, when you get more of an opportunity and you get a little bit more trust and a little bit more play in the offense, good things can happen. You know what I mean? And
he has
or
the
bad things.
Too,
so. I mean, absolutely does. I mean, he scored a 50-point, had 50-point game there last year. I mean, sometimes it does happen.
It's an abnormality for him, I would say, to get a 50-point game, but it's not out of the question for his potential to get 20 points a game. With Carmelo Anthony, I guess we'll kind of fire through this basketball a little quick because we've been on it a little bit. But Carmelo Anthony the Knicks are terrible this year. We all knew that. We knew that they were going to be terrible going in. Carmelo Anthony was hurt. He's been playing through a tendon issue in his knee. He's done for the season, coincidentally, after the All-Star game.
He quit. Let's call it what it is.
Well, he should have quit before he even made it to the All-Star game, as they've said that he's playing through tendon damage. And
You know,
why stay healthy to just play in the All-Star game? Like,
well,
I mean, you're not benefiting
because
your team.
that's who he is. That's exactly who he is. We've discussed this again before. If he really wanted to win, he would have gone to Chicago for less money. But he and his wife, or his wife, the bright lights of New York kept him there. What I have a problem with, and if I was a fan of the Knicks, you know, he says all week, you know, he feels it's important. New York's hosting the All-Star game. He's got to be out there, represent the city and team. I understand that. I get that. I mean, I get that. On the flip side of that, you don't need to play in the game to be a presence there.
No.
You can do all the media stuff. You can do all the interviews. You can do all the charity fundraising, do all the dinners, you know.
Yeah.
Champagne and campaign and whatever
Well,
you want to say.
He could have made it worse, really, by playing through it.
Well, I'm sure he did. You know, I mean, you can't necessarily play on an injury. So, before the All-Star game, he says that he's going to play maybe a couple minutes, get a shot up, maybe even just play the tip. What does he go to do? He plays 25, 30 minutes, gets 20 shots up. You know, I mean, and then 2 days later, he says he's done for the year and has surgery. You know, it's just mixed messages. You know what I mean? It just doesn't look right. It just doesn't look good.
To me, he seems like he's a player all about me. It's my stats.
That's why he'll never win. That's why he'll never win. That's why he will never win. He's a great talent. He can put the ball in the hoop, but he'll never win. And I mean, commenting further on the state of the Knicks, you know, Phil Jackson after yesterday's horrendous, you know. I mean, it wasn't even really. I mean,
they didn't even try. They're losing all their TV slots and everything. They've been. There's a difference between being a bad team and a bad team that's not even really trying.
Well, yeah, like look at the Boston Celtics. They don't have a good team on paper, but Brad Stevens is the head coach, and they have players that are working their tails off every night.
Even the Philadelphia 76ers, like you could say that they didn't have the greatest team after their 0-19 or 0-17, whatever it was there. They've kind of been 12-24 or 12-20 or something. Like they've been respectable. They had the 12th ranked defense for a young team. So I mean, that shows signs of playing hard. The Knicks are just mailing it in. But I mean, you've got.
Well, I mean, he commented, you know, last night over Twitter, which, you know, was again. I mean, I don't even understand how you can put, you know, supposedly, you know, management type quotes or whatever just out on Twitter. Like, talk to a reporter if you want to get something out there.
But same as LeBron James putting Kevin Love through.
Oh yeah,
it's foolish.
But I mean, where's Phil Jackson taking the accountability with the horrendous trade of trading for Jose Calderon and trading away Tyson Chandler and Ray Felton? I mean, why? You know what I mean? Like,
they're terrible, and there's no signs really of them looking up, in my opinion.
Well, until they get the #1 pick this year.
But even then, Julio Okafor probably.
Yeah.
He's still probably going to be a year or two away before he'd even be effective.
Yeah.
And he's got an injury right now of some kind, I believe.
He rolled his ankle the other night in the North Carolina game, but he came back and played like a beast.
Okay, so he's fine then.
Oh yeah, no, he's good.
Well, I know he is good, but is he going to be a franchise player though? Like, is he?
He might be.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not LeBron or a Michael Jordan or Hakeem Olajuwon or Patrick Ewing when they came in, but I mean, you know, those names are few and far between. You know what I mean?
Well, and then I think too, it has to do with some of the management too, really. And if the Knicks really don't look like they're that competent, like James Dolan doesn't really seem like he knows what he's doing.
No.
So as far as bringing in players and even into the right system, like they kind of seem like they're all over the place, and I don't necessarily know if they would be a right spot to develop a young player. Like you look at the Celtics, and like you were saying, how they're trying hard, and that looks like more of a organization where you'd want to develop a young player. Like it's more structurally sound from bottom to top. James Dolan, like, did you see the email where he lashed out at a fan? Like,
called him an alcoholic, called the fan an alcoholic.
And said that he was pretty well useless. And
well, that's the state of that's where we are in 2015. I mean,
I can't see an organization like that being able to develop a young talent into a prodigy if your management or your owner can't even.
So let me ask you. So do you think it's because like we live in St. Stephen, New Brunswick, Canada? We don't have any sports teams within 6 hours away would be Boston, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like I couldn't imagine emailing or trying to contact somebody through an organization to rip on them. I guess I don't like don't these people like have children and wives and lives other than just being all about the sports? I mean, look,
being a diehard Leafs fan, if you kind of see your team continuously flounder, at some point I think you do have the right to say something to whether it's a coach, a general manager, owner. I think the fans do have the right to.
Okay, so let me push back on that. As a fan, you have the choice to go root for somebody else.
Yes.
So wouldn't that be more of a middle finger?
Would you ever root for the Jays?
Well, no, I don't have to. The Red Sox are 3-time world champions in the last decade.
But I mean, once you get...
And they do everything seemingly pretty good.
That's what I mean about a good organization, though, as well.
Well, they've had 2 last-place finishes the last couple of years. I don't mind it because I see their plan going forward, and I believe
it's a good organization. I think that has a lot to do with it. You can name off the organizations in each league that are kind of...
So it's
disgruntled.
So it's a state of the organization being so terrible that it just is like a tipping point for fans.
Yeah, okay. I think it's like if you don't see any sign of improvement, like any sign, like the Knicks have been terrible for really the last 10 years.
Well, they had a good team there a couple years ago. I think they
won
finished
out pretty well.
Oh, they were. Oh, yeah. They won one playoff series.
And then, they did look like they could have been good when they signed Stoudemire and Anthony. Like that looked like it could have been a formidable duo.
Oh, yeah.
But, it didn't work out. And then they didn't recover from that. They made bad trade after bad trade. Same as the Leafs. Like they start to look like they're going somewhere, and then it doesn't work out, and then they just make bad trade after bad trade after bad signing. And it's just kind of a state. The organizations, I find the organizations that struggle don't really seem to have a good long-term plan. Like when you said when Boston finished in the last place, you've seen kind of where they were going. The organizations I find that struggle don't really have that long-term view. They can't really... They're looking more in the now or more in the next couple of years or something, but they have a hard time with the long-term view.
Yeah.
And I think it just kind of continuously avalanches, really. And it's, again, I think it probably starts with the owner. Like, if your owner's doesn't know what he's doing and who he's bringing in for staff, then...
Well, yeah, like the old Seinfeld thing. you're just rooting for laundry, right? Because the way, especially now, guys just trade, switch teams all the time, right? So it's hard to, but I guess I find it interesting that it would get to that level that someone feels that they have the the opportunities out there, but guess they have the right to crap on the organization, and then when they get a response back like this fan did, then it's a big, but who's the chicken and the egg, you know what I mean? Like, if he's that bothered by it, I think he should maybe find a different hobby or something, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand, like...
But if you've rooted for a team your whole life, and he said he had been rooting for the Knicks back probably when they were a really good team, and then you just kind of see them...
Well, yeah, but that's sports. You can't be on top every year. You know what I mean? I've been a Philly Eagles fan my whole life for 25 years. They've only had one sniff at the Super Bowl, and
better than my Leafs in 40.
Well, fair enough, but yeah. So I guess it's you make a good point. Yeah,
it's just it's the fans that are paying the money, so I think the fans really should get to voice their opinion sometimes, and maybe not. Have some patience, but when you don't see any sign of direction, I think they should definitely get a chance to voice their opinion. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I guess, and then I guess that was my pushback, was that, I mean, if you have that much of a problem and if you don't believe in it and they don't have any players that you like and this and that,
then switch teams.
Then maybe you should find a different team of a player that you do like, or an organization that that gives you joy, you know what I mean?
But I think for us, where we don't really have a local team, it'd be a little easier to just kind of switch what we wanted to go for. But I mean, if we had a local team, it would be awful hard not to root for them.
Well, and I guess maybe that's why I can't connect with that, because we're so far away, and I mean, we don't live in an Atlanta where we eat, breathe, sleep Atlanta Braves or whatever the case may be, right? So maybe that, okay.
I could say that.
I got you. I got you.
So we'll just take a quick break, folks, and when we come back, we'll talk about some hockey and some other sports. And if you do want to give us a call and give us your opinion on anything we've said, or disagree with us, agree with us, anything like that, give us a call. It's 529-8826, and if you're long distance, it's 1-855 in front of the 529-8826. And thanks again, guys. We'll talk to you in a couple of minutes.
At Fredericton Nissan, they're proud to say most of their staff have been here for over 20 years. So you know you're dealing with an experienced and trusted team of professionals in both sales and service. Fixing it right the first time. That's what it takes to be a Nissan technician. Drop by Fredericton Nissan at 580 Prospect Street and discover why Nissan is the fastest growing brand in Canada.
Today, we bring you the first part of our global broadcast exclusive conversation.
The streets of Tahrir have once again been filled.
Key issues here at the United Nations Climate Change Conference remain unresolved.
Police are saying the protesters to move further and further away.
I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!
And welcome back, folks. That's a quick little break there. So we did talk about some basketball, and like I said, if you guys wanted to chime in any on what we've said or what we haven't said in basketball or anything like that, it's 1-855-529-8826. We're going to jump into some hockey now right quick. The LA Kings are on a tear.
Yep, playing well.
7 in a row now, I think. Would you give them any Stanley Cup favorites?
I mean,
like, would you put them up there again?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard to be back-to-back champs in any sport, let alone, kind of clawing your way back into a playoff race. But I mean, they got the team to do it. I mean,
well, I mean, if you have Jonathan Quick, one of the best goalies in the league, on your team, and then guys that have won it like Kopitar and stuff.
Anchored, with Doughty and stuff. Yeah. I mean, they have guys who've been through the rigors. I mean, they're
starting to find their form right around the right time of the year.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. And I mean, we've said this before too. I mean, it's a marathon, right? And I mean, just because maybe you're slugging away at the beginning of the year, which I'm sure, I mean, they had a long playoff run, I'm sure they had a busy off season, making the trips around, making the trips around to each
hometown.
That's right. So I mean, it's hard to get back into it once you come off that high like that. So I mean, it takes a little bit of time to get the juices going again and get things clicking. And I was surprised they were on the borderline of making the playoffs for as long as they were, because they have star-studded talent. I mean, they've definitely been there, done that, and do you see them making any deals? Or, I mean...
if they can get rid of Richards. Otherwise, I think they're pretty tight to the cap. But if any team wants to take a flyer on Richards, I could see them maybe making a move. If not, I can see them calling Richards up before the playoffs and having him come back to the third or fourth line for the playoffs, because he is a proven winner in the playoffs. He plays above his head in the playoffs. Yeah.
So, and then I mean, they last year, what helped propel them to the championship. Obviously, they had the young kids, Toffoli and Dwight King and these
and they
types
really
of guys
stepped
that stepped up, played crunch time minutes, if you will, and played well.
San Jose really tanked it, but
well.
I mean, you can give LA some credit, but I think you got to give San Jose some credit for tanking it being up 3-0.
Is this time? Well, that's true. So I mean, that kind of
I'd say that gave LA all kinds of momentum. Like if you're down 3-0 and you come back and beat 4 straight against a really good team, that sets you up for the rest of the playoffs. You should be running on a high off that.
Yeah.
But so I really thought Seattle should have been running off a high running into the New England game after playing one of their worst halves of the season. And but I mean, I'll give them credit. They played a phenomenal game. New England just played better. So
So touching on San Jose Sharks, they're now on the outside looking in for the playoffs. Is it time to kind of blow that up and just move on, start over? I mean, they've had a top team in the Western Conference for years.
The last 10 years.
And it's one playoff debacle after another.
First round and out, second round and out.
I mean, now they have great players.
Thornton, Marleau,
Couture, Pavelski,
Vlasic, Niemi's playing above his head.
Good, you know what I mean? Like, so is it time to?
If I was a Sharks fan, I would say no. Just because if you have that talented of a nucleus, you kind of want to still believe in that. But being a hockey fan and seeing how San Jose is done over the last 10 years, I would say yes. I mean, it's time to maybe if you can get Thornton to waive his clause or Marleau, maybe go a little younger. They say the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and expecting different results. They've had the same core for 10 years and haven't been able to, I mean, basically the same core for the last 10 years and 1 and out, 2 and out. Like, it's just, I say it's time. I believe I've seen the Emmys on the trade rumor block just because he's a restricted free agent at the end of the season or unrestricted. So they might end up getting rid of their goalie. If Thornton can waive his clause, they talked about that even at the end of last year after that terrible playoff loss, shipping him out, but he has a no-trade clause, so that's going to be hard. He just signed for, I think, 4 years before that season at $5 million. So I think it'll be hard for them to blow it up, really, but I think it probably is time, especially if you miss the playoffs this year. Todd McLennan's gone as head coach. That would almost be guaranteed just because you do have such a good team.
Well, Niemi will go. Stalock is a very good backup, right? I mean, I almost think he was better last year than Niemi was. So you touched on the trade deadline. There's already been a couple trades that have gone down there last week. Trade deadline's March 2nd. Next week. What did you think as a Leafs fan that you are? The Franz and Sandrelli trade.
I think Nashville got a heck of a steal. Franzen was probably Toronto's best player this season. Not that that's saying too much this year, but he had really he had really turned the corner. He is a legitimate top 4 defense that's going to be a solid defensive defenseman. Sandrelli was playing above his head this year. Like he played really well for a second, third line guy. Well, I guess with Sandrelli you could slide him throughout, but I'd say Nashville got probably the better deal. Especially Jokinen doesn't really want to play in Toronto. Being near the end of his career, he doesn't want to play on a loser.
And he's got a lot of say in that.
Well, and he hasn't been that great of a player this season either, or for the last 5 years, really.
He doesn't move the needle. I mean, I don't know where he gets the. Well, I don't want to play in Toronto. Well. Just be thankful you're still playing in the NHL, man.
No, I definitely agree with that. He hasn't moved the needle. Like, he did terrible in Calgary. He did terrible in Nashville, and
I mean he's been a non-factor for quite some time. Evander Kane getting traded to Buffalo.
That is huge. I think. We had talked about Evander Kane quite a bit actually. I think it'll be good for him to go to a non-traditional hockey market. I mean, Buffalo does have a very good hockey market. They've had good teams. Their fans are passionate, but it's not going to have the media like it did in Winnipeg. He's not going to be scrutinized over every little thing. I think that'll do good for him. I honestly think there is some real chemistry issues between him and Bufflin. I think maybe the personalities kind of clash there.
Yeah.
I do think Winnipeg did get a pretty good haul out of it, though, with Tyler Myers.
Yeah.
Especially with Kane being out for the rest of the season. I mean, that does kind of help Buffalo as well, because they get to ship away a couple of prospects and get a really good player back that's not going to play this year. So it helps them in their push for Connor McDavid as well. Can you imagine if they get Connor McDavid, though, and him feeding Evander Kane? Like, Buffalo's got a legitimate chance.
That's a good step in the right direction for sure.
And he's a young player. I think it'll do him good, though, to get out of a non-hockey market. And I think Winnipeg ended up out all right in the trade, too, because their hands were kind of forced. Everybody knew that they had to get rid of Kane. He was injured. You would have thought that might have hurt their intake for him because he was injured. So, I mean, that pushed a couple of the contending teams that were pushing for his services out of his services, because they're not going to trade away a couple of players to get him if he's not even going to play.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're pretty well trying to sell to the selling teams. So, I mean, they did good.
Yeah.
I'd like to see, honestly, this is probably the happiest I've been as a Leafs fan, just to see some kind of a direction. We've been 17th, 14th to 17th best team, 18th best team, 19th. Like, not a terrible team, not at the bottom 5-10 in the league for the last 10 years, but not in the top 16 either. We've kind of just missed it, but we haven't played well enough to get a good draft pick. And then when they did get a good draft pick, they had thought they were going to be a better team and traded away their draft pick for somebody that's going to retire in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So to actually see that they're, well, if they stick with it, like, it'd be nice to see some sort of direction.
So do you think they're going to move Phaneuf, Kessel?
I'd love to see them move Phaneuf, Kessel, Lupul. I mean, that same core is kind of, I'd stick with Kadri. Obviously, he's going to be a really good young player. He's kind of stepped it up with his two-way game this year.
Van Riemsdyk stays.
Van Riemsdyk, yes, he's been more healthy than Joffrey Lupul. I mean, if the two stayed healthy at a comparable rate, I'd probably go with Lupul over Van Riemsdyk, but Lupul's a health risk. Kessel, he's going to do good somewhere. I think Kessel's going to do good somewhere. I don't think he can do good in Toronto. I don't think he has the personality to handle the media on his case every day. I think he would do awesome in a Florida where he could fly under the radar and kind of do whatever he wanted and not be asked stupid questions every day. Like, yes, I love the media, but there's some in the Canadian hockey markets. It's foolish. They make stories out of nothing, and they kind of overplay every story. If Toronto wins the game, it's yes, let's play in the Stanley Cup parade. If they lose a game, oh, who are we shipping out? Like, so I'm kind of glad now if Brendan Shanahan sticks with the rebuild. Like, let's go young. We know that we're not going to be a good team. Let's build to be a good team. Before they were always, well, we could be a good team if we play up to potential, and they never played up to potential.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about Kessel. I mean, he is a very talented player.
I don't think he's a leader, though.
Well, that's I guess my question. I mean, is he a leader? Kind of like, same way Thornton is. I mean, they score points. They're likable. They're exciting on the ice. I mean,
I think
they
Thornton
have their fans and they have their
in the dressing room, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I mean, they have their fans. They have their guys that are. But I mean, is he just maybe not the right fit?
I don't think he's the right fit in Toronto as being the main go-to guy. I think he needs to be your number two guy. Like, he's good enough to be your number one guy, but I don't think he has the get on my back, guys. Let's. I'm going to take you into the war. I don't think he's that guy. I think he's the next in line to be that guy. Like, he'll be, if somebody's like, get on my back, let's go to war, he'll be right there.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think he has the personality or the drive really to be like, okay, guys, this is my game, we're going to win it.
Yeah.
But I think if he was put on with some gritty, hard-working players that really kind of nose to the grindstone, it might kind of wear off on him, or it would create space for him where he could be kind of open on the wing and be the next best guy. Like, I think he'd play great behind, like, beside a Kopitar.
Yeah.
A guy that's like a nice two-way center that's strong, powerful, gets you some space, and then you don't have to be the best guy on the team.
Yeah.
And then I think that's his issue.
If you had to pick two Stanley Cup finalists right now, who would they be?
As
Going into the trade deadline.
As bad as it pains me to say this, Montreal is looking like the best team in the East, and I absolutely hate saying that because
I've never been a Canadiens fan either.
But Montreal is looking really good. Carey Price, if he plays the way he's been playing, if he doesn't get run by Chris Kreider again, they have a legitimate chance.
Well, yeah, I mean, with Subban and Carey Price anchoring, back there, they got good, explosive young talent, goal scorers, hard grinders, workers.
Pittsburgh's kind of touch and go. Like Pittsburgh can play really good sometimes, and they can play really bad other times.
I think it's a Tampa Bay, Montreal. If it works out the seeding wise, that they can see themselves in the East Conference championship. That's what I see. On the West side, I think Nashville. I mean, they're the team to beat. Yeah. I mean, but Anaheim, we had touched on the Kings. I mean, I think those three teams are going to be. It's going to be between, it's going to be one of those.
Minnesota has actually looked really well as of late as well. Devin Dubnyk's kind of solidified the back end somehow. He kind of come out of nowhere. I did read an article that was saying that he's changed his puck tracking, like the way he tracked the puck. So it seems to have been helping. I mean, I know it's a small sample, but he's kind of really done that. And their scoring's come together. Minnesota had a really good team. I think they did a nice little trade there too, didn't they?
I don't know. To be honest.
They picked up another defense. I can't think right off the top of my head who it was though, but they've got a solid defense. They've got some guys that can score. But like you said,
they just snuck into the playoff, right? Yeah. I mean, not snuck in, but I mean they're
back in there.
Yeah,
but they're kind of one of the teams, like I said about LA, that's kind of seeming like they're picking up their game at the right times. They're like 13-1-2, I think, in their last 16. LA's won 7 in a row, so they're kind of the two hot teams in the NHL right now. You said about Nashville as well. Pekka Rinne is hands down, between him and Carey Price, I guess can't say hands down, but those two right now are hands down the best goalies in the league.
They're neck and neck with the Vezinas, that's for sure.
Mike Ribeiro actually has done a solid, very quiet job in Nashville. He signed for like $1 million. He scored 51 points.
Yeah, and they picked up James Neal last year, right?
So I mean, I think. But
Philip Forsberg's had a good rookie year. I mean,
Washington actually looks really good this year.
Washington's kind of one of those teams that are playing
Ovechkin's
well.
played kind of better than he has with his two-way game.
That's right. He's playing a little bit more two-way hockey.
An interesting stat that I found interesting anyway. You were saying about Tampa Bay, Montreal in the playoffs. Tyler Johnson is actually leading Steven Stamkos in points. He has 4 more points than Steven Stamkos and is plus 33 in the plus-minus higher.
Yeah.
So I found that really interesting. Stamkos is, you would think, has got to go on a tear here soon. Tampa Bay's been one of the best teams in the league and Stamkos hasn't even had his best season. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I mean he's a top player in the NHL. So, but it's funny that you really haven't heard much about Crosby this year. You know what I mean? Like he's arguably the top 3 in the league, but I mean he's not anywhere close to leading the league in points. You know, you got Jacob Voracek and Tyler Seguin
and Philly actually.
They're another team
they may sneak in. Boston, David Krejci is injured now. They say for 4 to 6 weeks. So right now, if Boston's clinging on to that 8th spot, but Florida and Philly, Florida Panthers and Philadelphia is kind of right on their tail.
Yeah, I don't see Boston
hanging on. No, I don't either.
And they just don't have the scoring punch that they need.
Well, and then they're too tight to the salary cap to even make really a deadline deal. And then Krejci out, your number 1 center for 4 to 6 weeks. That really.
Oh yeah, it really hurts them. I mean, I know they scored 6 goals there last night against Chicago, but I mean that's an outlier. I mean, that's not they aren't scoring 6 goals a game. That's for sure, right? So
the team I'd like to see really overtake Florida or Boston would be Florida. I'd like to see Florida sneak in. They've got Aaron Ekblad is phenomenal, an 18-year-old defense, and he's playing out of his head. Like he's 4 points away from breaking Bobby Orr's 18-year-old rookie scoring record.
Who cares? You can't put Ekblad and whoever that is and Bobby Orr in the same sentence.
But as an 18-year-old, that record's been there for 48 years as an 18-year-old scoring in defense. So, I mean, to come into the NHL at 18-year-old and have a season that's comparable to.
Don't say it.
It's
Don't say
comparable
it.
to
It's
the
not,
great. It's comparable to the great one's first season. I'm not saying that he's going to continue it over the longevity of his career, but their first 2 seasons are comparable together, and that is promising though for Florida.
Blasphemy! How can you say that?
Well,
comparing. Anyway.
Well, I'm not really comparing. I'm comparing the first 2 seasons. I'm not. Ekblad's nowhere near a Bobby Orr, but I mean, if he continues to get better and play the way he has, 20 years down the road, he could be.
All right. Well, switching gears here, moving on to baseball. Talk a little. We got 10 minutes left, so let's talk a little bit about another controversial individual. One, Alex Rodriguez.
Oh yeah, my favorite baseball player.
Is he?
No, he was until I found out about all that juice. But,
yeah. I actually wrote an article for Bleacher Report a few years ago that when he first initially came out and said that he was taking, I actually felt sad in a way. I mean, I loved to root against him. I hated him. I mean, I hated him. I thought
he was such a phenomenal player.
Yeah, and I felt as a baseball fan like, wow, like I just wanted to dislike him because he was so good and played against, played for the Yankees and had that arrogance and stuff, right? Just the way he carried himself. But no, it disappointed. It disappointed me. But I mean, it's been a gong show with him since. I mean, he's coming back this year, going to be 40. The Yankees have made no bones about it. They aren't thrilled to have him back. What do you see going forward?
He from what I've read, he looks like he's in shape. Like I think they said during his batting practice he hit 6 out of 71 over the wall. I mean, that's not terrible odds. He's just got to beat out Chase Headley.
Oh, he's not beating out Chase Headley. There's no.
No. Well, Chase Headley's pretty old too, though.
No, he's a younger player. He was Silver Slugger, Gold Glove. He's been promised the third base. I mean, he wouldn't have re-signed as a free agent with the Yankees if he wasn't told this is your position. A-Rod's going to be the DH. I mean, and from a baseball standpoint, A-Rod, 40 years old. There's not many 40-year-old third basemen, so you know what I mean. His defense probably wasn't going to be able to translate.
I mean, he took a year off last year, so if he used that year to train, he might be in all right shape.
Do you think he spent that year to train?
No, well, if I made a couple $100 million, I probably wouldn't spend my year training if I had a year off.
And dating Tori Wilson at the time. Yeah. I don't think you're spending too much time on the ball field.
No, we're going to the beaches.
But no, I mean, last week he in cursive writing, nonetheless, issued an apology to the fans and organization and all that
I
stuff.
think he's sorry that he got caught. I don't think he's necessarily sorry that he did it. He apologized for his mistakes. I think he's more sorry that he got caught.
Oh yeah, no, he's so into himself that he would never.
I still would like to see him have a good comeback season, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people are definitely.
I would like to. I would like to just to have a good story. I mean, a good feel-good story for him. I'm not really, like I said, I kind of like you. I admired him before. Not necessarily I didn't like the guy. I thought he was very arrogant and. I was a Jays fan, so I was kind of the same as you. But at the same time, to watch him play when he was in his PED prime, he was phenomenal. He could catch anything, he could hit anything. He was. Oh, he was phenomenal. But
he had seasons that were in the top 15, 20 of all time. So and then it just comes all crashing down. You know what I mean?
But I mean, I'm still hoping for honestly. A nice Tiger Woods comeback. I can't really ever see that happening either, but I would still like to see.
Once you get injuries,
just a good story. I'd like the good story.
Isn't it a good story that he's done? I never liked Tiger Woods.
No, I didn't either. But
I
think it would be a good story if he went through all he went through, and then, it was his own fault.
Well, exactly. But,
even to go through 5 or 6 years of abysmal golf compared to what he had played to. Maybe win it again. I think that'd be a good story. Yeah. Same as I'd like to see Rodriguez come back and maybe hit 300 without PEDs, so he can be like, I could have done it without it.
Well,
he could have. He probably could have, but he didn't. So I mean, it doesn't really matter that he probably could have.
Well, I think his obsession with being the best of all time, which.
Well, and I think that's kind of what got to Barry Bonds too, but.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I mean that's a personality trait that, you know, you and I clearly don't have. You know what I mean? And who are we to say if we were in that position? You know, I mean, the thing is with them, they were both great.
And then baseball covered it up too, though. I mean, you can't necessarily. I mean, you can blame those guys, but you can't tell me that baseball didn't know.
Oh yeah. No, but what my point was going to be, you can't judge and blame a guy who's a fringe AAA to Major League Baseball player when millions of dollars are possibly on the line. You're being set for the rest of your life and perhaps making family, years down the road, like, better.
Yep.
That's a tough decision. I mean, would you not? You know what I mean? That's a tough decision. I mean, that's up to each individual. The things with Bonds and Clemens and Rafael Palmeiro and Rodriguez, I mean, they were Hall of Fame players anyway.
Yeah.
They didn't need this stuff.
But I think the reason that they were able, or that they felt comfortable doing it, is MLB did their best to cover it. Like, so I mean, if you see Joe Blow beside you doing it, and he's getting away with it, and they're just not saying anything, so I can see why.
Oh no, it was definitely cover. It was a big cover up by managers, clubhouse personnel, organizations, the media. I mean, it was a
scandal.
Well,
and I mean, you could.
It was an era in the game.
If you could see that fringe AAA player doing it and getting away with it and making himself that much better, I mean, it would be tempting. I'm not like, I wouldn't do it. Because I'm an honorable person, but I could see, like you said, with millions of dollars on the line, if I could go from hitting 30 home runs to 50 home runs, my paycheck just doubled pretty well. So I mean, I mean, it's definitely something that each of us would have to come to grips with. But I think, kind of getting into that era, you said it was an era in baseball, they should still have to put Bonds, Clemens, these players that did do amazing things, regardless if they cheated, in the Hall of Fame. Like, it's an era of baseball. You can't just forget the whole 20 years and be like, all you players that played during this time frame aren't.
Well, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be something that is going to be a story going forward. I mean, there's no question about that.
Boston Red Sox signed a Cuban prospect, very young, touted.
Yeah, 19-year-old. I own Moncada, I think is his name. Yeah,
they
highly touted.
Yankees and stuff. So.
Well, hey, look, every team had a chance.
Yeah.
It's just they put the money where the mouth is, and
$31 million signing bonus.
I mean, everyone's gonna
That's
crap
a lot
on
of money
him
for a 19-year-old.
Yeah, but you know what? They win a couple championships with him. They market him right, and he turns out to be a stud.
Yeah,
that pays itself.
And,
so I mean, people can complain all they want and say that the Red Sox just do what they do. Hey, they're going outside the box and thinking outside the box. I mean,
no, I give them all credit.
Yeah. So what do you think the Blue Jays are going to do with Deontay Navarro? He's demanding a trade. Has since they signed Russell Martin. I can't see that.
I can't see I can't see them being able to afford it.
Well, they can't keep him. If they keep him, that's going to be a very
issue in the clubhouse,
toxic clubhouse that's probably already going to. I mean, it's going to be anyway. Yeah. I mean,
it'll be a tough decision. I think the Blue Jays have potential to be a good team next year, but I think depends on their.
I think they'll get rid of him, but I don't think they'll get anything for him because it's already out there, right? I mean, and they know that the other clubs are already going to know that
their hands
are forced, right?
Yeah. So, just one more big sports news before we ended here, I guess.
Flip off for the
flip
night.
off.
Yeah.
Be Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao finally announced a fight.
Yep.
So that's pretty big news in the boxing world.
Is it in May?
Huh? Yeah, I think in May.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Well, we'll talk about that at a later date anyway, as it gets a little bit closer.
And maybe do a little preview or something. Hard to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been a pleasure, folks. Thanks again for tuning in. And if you want to tune in next Monday, or not next Monday, sorry, the following Monday, give us a call.
Have a good night.